Hello, so today I'd like to talk about the importance of air traffic separation. Unfortunately, in our industry's history, we have quite a few past air traffic separation disasters, both incidences and accidents that have led to catastrophic loss of life. Some of these have been caused through mid-air collisions while up at cruise, while others have been caused by runway incursions, and others being caused by controlled flight into terrain. A few that I'd like to talk about today are the first being the mid-air collision over the Grand Canyon of a United Airlines Douglas DC-7 and a Trans World Airlines Lockheed L-1049. This particular accident happened due to pilots flying in uncontrolled airspace where they were required to maintain visual separation from other aircraft and make their own radio calls to keep that separation. This is at a time before air traffic control is the way that it is today. This was actually one of the major turning points where air traffic control became what it is today, and also quite a few different safety features brought itself to the Part 121 world that we know today. Another unfortunate accident was the runway collision of the in Tenerife of two Boeing 747s, at that time the largest commercial airliner in the world, and one of them being KLM and one of them being Pan Am. This occurred on a low visibility day, and KLM, they took the runway, and before being issued a takeoff clearance, before Pan Am exited the runway, KLM's captain was pretty anxious to get going because of a day full of delays, and they pushed up the throttles and took off before Pan Am was able to exit the runway. This led to everyone. KLM did leave the ground before it ran into the back of Pan Am. Everyone on the KLM 747 was killed, and everyone except for roughly the front 60 passengers in the Pan Am aircraft were killed as well. The first officer actually realized that there was something wrong on the KLM flight, but didn't speak up because there was not very good crew communication back in that day. The last one I'm going to talk about today is the controlled flight into terrain in Air New Zealand Flight 901. This one occurred, there was a Air New Zealand Flight 901 was a sightseeing flight, and originally they said that it was the fault of the pilots, but after looking further into it, air traffic control gave them a new vector and did not let the pilots know, which led them flying into a mountain. This is something that absolutely could happen today, if not paying close attention when getting into IMC and being vectored. So a question that I like to think, and that I'm sure that a lot of you are thinking, is could this happen again in today's era of technology and training? And the answer is absolutely. If we're not careful, this is absolutely something that could happen again. So what can we do to prevent it? Well, a few things that we should all put into practice is thorough crew coordination, proper use of technology, utilizing air traffic control, and following company procedures, also known as standard operating procedures. So the first one I'd like to discuss is crew coordination. In the Part 121 environment, when there are two pilots piloting an aircraft, before takeoff and before each arrival, the crew is supposed to, before takeoff, before the crew departs, they're supposed to identify, they're supposed to do a thorough briefing, but before they do that, they're supposed to do a thorough pre-flight inspection, do a walk around of the aircraft, study the weather, see the route of their flight, take a look at the taxi diagrams, the runway diagram, look at the departure procedure, look at the weather, and look at other threats. They're supposed to identify all of these threats and come up with a mitigation strategy. After both of these pilots, both the pilot monitoring and the pilot flying, review this thoroughly, the pilot flying will verbally point out these hot spots and give the mitigation strategy. It's important to be clear and concise with these to keep the attention of both crew members and also keep it simple so that you know exactly what you need to do if something goes wrong, and also for the already known factors, known negative factors, you know exactly how to mitigate that and avoid it from becoming a major problem. It's also important with crew coordination, and the FAA has put quite a bit of emphasis on this, for both crew members staying involved and working together as a team. With that unfortunate KLM Pan Am crash, a lot of that was because the pilots did not work together as a team. So now when first officers see something, they're strongly advised and encouraged to say something, which increases crew coordination, increases safety. The next one that I wanted to include was the proper use of technology. In today's day, we have some pretty incredible technology features that are good mitigation strategies for preventing one of these accidents from happening again. The first one is using the terrain advisory on the multifunction display when necessary. Whenever I fly in a mountainous terrain or shooting an approach, I make sure that one pilot, either the pilot monitoring or pilot flying, will have the weather up, while the other has terrain up, so that we have good situational awareness. Another important factor is having proper training on the EJIPWA's recognition and procedures, the Enhanced Ground Proximity Warning System. This will let you know when you're coming up on ground that's not normal for coming into land, and it will give you guidance on what you need to do to avoid going into the ground. Each company has their own separate procedures on that should be reviewed and well known by the crew members. Another important one is having a knowledge of regulations and proper use of airborne collision avoidance systems. I have some personal experience with these. They're extremely helpful. It can be hard with closure rates of jets to sometimes pick up other air traffic, other GA air traffic. And this system is designed to pick up through TCAS to pick up the other aircraft and give a resolution so that the aircraft do not run into each other. It will tell you to climb, descend, or turn, or both, if necessary. Another one of these is just staying alert, making sure that we're using all the technology that we're given, and we're staying alert, making sure to properly use all of that technology. Another important one is utilizing air traffic control. It's important to not be afraid to ask questions. Make sure that you're trusting air traffic control, but when you're being vectored, you're making sure to stay situationally aware. You're ready to ask questions if something doesn't quite seem right to you. Make sure that things are going smoothly and correctly. One more very important thing is to have clear and concise radio calls with standard phraseology. This is important for both air traffic control as well as pilots, so that there's no miscommunication, there's no clogging of frequencies, so everybody can get in a word when necessary, and so that people from all over the world can communicate with each other with confidence. Another one, very important, is following company procedures, standard operating procedures. It's very important to become with your company-specific standing operating procedures, and to always be strive for 100% compliance. It's important to know federal aviation regulations as well as company procedures. Do everything that we can to try to follow those. not just when it's convenient for us, but always. This will definitely lead to a much safer flying environment. The aviation flying environment is ever-changing, so it's important to stay up to date with changes, and also to recognize that we may not fully remember old information that we learned quite a long time ago. So up at cruise or at other times, it's important that we utilize that time to find a little time to review so that we're prepared. Most importantly, it's our responsibility to never let negative air traffic separation cause another death. We have some pretty incredible technological advances, as well as company procedures and training. There's no excuse. If everyone works together properly, we should never have to have another death due to negative air traffic separation again. Thank you.